You send a message, nothing complicated, not a big declaration, just a normal message, and they were online. You saw it 20 minutes ago, they were right there, but nothing comes back. And something happens in your chest, a small drop, a pull. Your thumb moves back to the conversation without you deciding to open it. You reread what you sent. Was it something you said? The tone? The punctuation? And then, quietly but completely, your brain makes a decision. Something is wrong. Not maybe. Not possibly. Certain. Here's the thing. Your brain isn't detecting rejection. It's predicting it. And there's a very specific reason why a simple delay, a few minutes, a few hours, can feel less like they're busy and more like evidence, like a verdict. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what's happening inside you. And more importantly, you'll have something to actually do about it in the moment. Let's walk through what this actually feels like. Because I want you to recognize this in your own experience, not just intellectually, but in your body. You send the message. The first minute or two, you're fine. Maybe they're in a meeting, maybe they're driving, normal. But then, 5 minutes, 10. You open Instagram. You can see they posted a story. They're on their phone. Now you're not just waiting, you're watching. You go back to the chat. You reread the message. The one you sent. Looking for what you said wrong. The words start to look different now. Did that come across weird? Did you sound needy? Too casual? Not enough? 20 minutes. 30. You've constructed 3 different explanations, dismissed all of them, and landed on one. They're not replying because they don't want to. And here's what I want you to hold on to before we go further. You're not imagining that timing matters. Research actually confirms that faster response times in conversation are associated with greater felt closeness. So noticing timing isn't you being irrational. Timing is a social signal. The question isn't whether timing matters. The question is, why does one delayed reply feel like the whole answer? This is the part I really want you to understand. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's a system inside you. See, we can call it the attachment system. And its one job is to monitor closeness. It's tracking whether the people who matter to you are available to you, whether they're responding to you, whether connection feels safe or uncertain. For most people, this system hums along in the background. But for people with what's called anxious attachment, and that's more of us than you'd think, this system runs a little louder, a little more alert. Here's a simple way to put it. Anxious attachment is a relationship pattern where closeness feels uncertain, so the mind becomes highly sensitive to any sign that someone might be pulling away. The system is scanning for distance. It doesn't wait calmly for data. It starts threat monitoring. And here's the mechanism, the 3 steps that turn a delay into a diagnosis. Step 1, ambiguity. They haven't replied. That's all that's happened. 1 data point. No information about why. Step 2, threat monitoring. Your attachment system treats that ambiguity as potential danger. Not danger like physical harm, danger like disconnection. Like the thing you care about slipping away. Step 3, emotional certainty. The system doesn't hold the question open. It closes it. It fills in the blank. And it fills it in negatively. This is why I said your brain is predicting rejection, not detecting it. There's a concept in the research that captures this perfectly. It's called lowering the threshold for rejection. The anxious mind doesn't just notice possible rejection faster, it lowers the threshold for calling something rejection. The same delay that reads as they must be busy to someone else reads as I know what this means to a brain that's I've been scanning for distance. Ambiguity doesn't stay ambiguous, it becomes proof. Now, why does texting specifically do this to us? Because here's what texting is when you strip it down. It's asynchronous, meaning there's no live exchange. You speak, then nothing. Then maybe they speak. It's low context, no tone of voice, No face, no body language, nothing to anchor what's happening. And it's full of partial signals. The read receipt, the active now, the typing bubble that appears and disappears, the story they just posted. These signals look meaningful, but they're actually just fragments. They tell you something is happening, but not what. That creates a very specific kind of torture for an anxious nervous system. It looks meaningful while staying ambiguous. A face-to-face conversation, you can read. A phone call, you can hear. But a text thread, it gives you just enough to feed interpretation, not enough to resolve it. And for someone whose nervous system already wants to close that uncertainty fast, texting is a perfect trigger. You can see activity, you can see they're there, but they're not replying to you. And that gap becomes a story. Let's talk about the physical part, because you've probably noticed that this doesn't just feel like mild annoyance, it feels like something is actually wrong. There's a tightness, a drop, your chest or stomach tenses, there's an urgency, like something needs to happen now. And there can be this strange cocktail of emotions, something like anger, something like shame, something like sadness, all at once. Here's why. Your body may be responding to a delayed text the same way it responds to social pain. Research on social rejection shows that social exclusion and perceived rejection can recruit some of the same systems involved in distress and pain processing. Not identically, this isn't a text hurts like a broken bone, but genuinely, your nervous system treats potential disconnection as a real threat, something worth alerting you to. So your body may be reacting like something socially important is going wrong before your rational mind has enough information to know if anything is actually wrong at all. That's why it feels physical. That's why it feels urgent. That's why it's just a text doesn't help, even when you know it's just a text. The feeling is real. The body isn't lying to you. The panic is real. The conclusion may not be. Here's where it gets really important, because this is the part that can quietly damage things you care about. When the attachment system gets activated, it needs resolution. It needs the uncertainty to close. And the fastest way to close it? Reach out, get contact, get reassurance. Confirm that you're okay, that they still care, that connection is intact. So you might send a follow-up, or check if they're active, or your next message comes with a slightly different energy, a little cooler, a little more pointed. And here's the loop. The delay triggers anxiety. Anxiety drives reaching. The reaching creates pressure. Pressure triggers distance. Distance feels like confirmation. You're trying to get reassurance. They're trying to get space. And both of those responses accidentally prove each other's fear. Research calls this the pursue-withdraw pattern. One person seeks connection, the other pulls back. And the more one pursues, the more the other withdraws. Not because they don't care, but because the pressure of being pursued can feel overwhelming. So the anxious person looks for closeness and gets distance. The distance confirms the fear. The fear increases the pursuit. The pursuit increases the distance. And if this pattern sounds familiar, if you can feel it in your chest a little right now, that's important information. Because the loop is self-reinforcing. Neither person is the villain, but both people are feeding it. Let's name some of the specific things people do when they're in this state. Not to call you out, to show you that you're not alone and you're not broken. When the attachment system is activated and the urge to restore connection kicks in, people often do what attachment theory calls protest behaviors. These are moves designed to close the distance. Fast. Like sending a second message, a third. Trying to get a response, any response. Going quiet and cold, withdrawing first so you're not the one waiting. Posting something to be visible. To be seen even if they won't reply. Checking if they're active, if they've seen it, if they're talking to someone else. Sending a testing message, something low stakes that secretly checks, do you still want to talk to me? Or the tone just shifts, you weren't upset, and then suddenly you are. And they can feel it. Here's the reframe, and I mean this. These aren't manipulation. They're panic strategies. Your nervous system is trying to solve an unsolvable problem, uncertainty, using the tools it has. These behaviors aren't coming from a bad place. They're coming from a place of fear. But they have costs. And the biggest cost is that they often create the very outcome you're afraid of, which is why understanding the mechanism matters so much. Not to shame yourself for having it, but to give yourself a better option. Let's go back to that certainty, because here's what I think is the most interesting part of this whole thing. It's not just that you feel anxious, it's that you feel right. They're losing interest. I annoyed them. I always care more than the other person. This always happens to me. Not a question, a statement, a verdict. How does ambiguity, literally just a gap in communication, become certainty? Because your brain isn't just responding to what's happening right now. It's taking three things and combining them. One, the real cue, the actual delay. Two, old attachment expectations. Every relationship where uncertainty meant something. Every time, silence did mean something was wrong. Every pattern you learned before you could choose what to learn. Three, current physiological arousal. The tension in your chest, the urgency, the activation. When you combine a real cue plus old pattern plus activated nervous system, the result isn't a question. It's a feeling of knowing. When your nervous system is activated, interpretation starts to feel like observation. That's the mechanism. You're not lying to yourself. You're not being irrational. You're doing what anxious nervous systems do under uncertainty. They fill the gap. They resolve the ambiguity. They make a prediction, and they experience it as fact. The issue isn't that you're wrong to feel it. The issue is that the feeling of knowing is not the same as knowing. Okay, this is the part I really want you to take with you. There's a difference between proof and data. Here's what proof thinking sounds like. They haven't replied. I know what this means. Proof thinking closes the case before the evidence is in. It treats one signal as a complete picture. It moves from something is happening to I know exactly what's happening without the steps in between. Here's what data thinking sounds like. A delayed reply is one data point. It has multiple possible explanations. Think about all the reasons you've ever sent a late reply. You got pulled into something. You saw the message and your brain filed it as responded to when you hadn't yet. You felt tired. You were in the middle of something and forgot. The timing just didn't line up. None of those meant you didn't care about the person. Now think, why would different rules apply to you? Here's a question you can ask yourself in real time. The next time this happens, what do I actually know, and what am I predicting? Those are two different things, and keeping them separate is one of the most powerful things you can do when anxiety is activated. A delayed reply is data. It is not automatically proof. And this line I want you to actually keep. Don't treat a delay like a diagnosis. A diagnosis is a conclusion. It's specific, it's final, it tells you what's wrong. A delay is a gap. A gap has many possible meanings. The anxious mind wants to close that gap instantly, but you get to decide how fast you close it and what you decide it means. Let's make this usable, because understanding it intellectually is one thing. Having something to actually do in the moment is another. Tool 1. Name the mechanism, not yourself, instead of I'm being dramatic. Try, my attachment system is activated right now. That sentence matters. It creates distance between the trigger and the conclusion. It says, something real is happening in me, and it's a recognizable pattern, not a verdict on the situation. You're not broken. You're activated. And activated states are temporary. Tool 2, separate sensation from story. Ask yourself 3 questions. What do I actually know? What am I predicting? What else could explain this? Write them down if you can. This isn't toxic positivity. It's not assume the best. It's hold the case open a bit longer than your nervous system wants to. Your nervous system wants to close the uncertainty photo. You're choosing to sit in I don't know yet for a little longer. Tool 3, delay protest behavior. Don't make relationship decisions at the peak of activation. Don't send the follow-up that comes from anxiety. Don't send the cooler message designed to test if they notice. Don't withdraw to regain power. Not because those feelings are wrong, but because decisions made at peak activation rarely reflect what you actually want, and they often feed the loop. Give yourself a window, an hour, 2, until the activation settles, then see what you still want to say. Tool 4, communicate directly. Later, not now. There's a version of this that actually helps. Sometimes long gaps in messaging trigger anxiety for me. Can we talk about what communication rhythm works for us both? That's a real conversation. It's not panic. It's not a test. It's you telling someone how your nervous system works and asking if you can figure it out together. That's only possible when you're not in the middle of activation, which is why all the other tools come first. Here's what I want to leave you with. You're not oversensitive. You're not broken. You're not too much. You have a nervous system that learned somewhere at some point that closeness is uncertain and that it needs to stay alert to protect you. That's not a character flaw. That's adaptation. That's your mind trying to keep you safe. The problem isn't that you care. The problem isn't that you notice. The problem is when the system designed to protect you starts generating the outcome it's trying to prevent. When certainty steps in before the evidence is there, when ambiguity becomes proof, when a delay becomes a diagnosis, you can interrupt that. Not by not feeling it. Not by forcing yourself to be chill about things that genuinely matter to you, but by keeping one distinction alive. The feeling of knowing is not the same as knowing. One more time, because I want it to stick. The goal isn't to stop caring, it's to stop turning uncertainty into a verdict. Because you deserve relationships where your nervous system isn't running the whole show. And other people deserve a version of you that can hold the question open long enough to find out what's actually true. You're working on that. The fact that you're here, watching this, engaging with this, that matters. Now you have the language. Now you have the map. Use it.